Hello, and welcome to Young Global Leaders, where we get the chance to hear from young people hailing from all around the world, sharing about themselves, their accomplishments, and their vision for a better world. Recently, I had the privilege of leading a group of about 100 young people from over 40 countries to 7 global regions on an 8-month global gap year program. Most of them had just graduated from high school, though we also had a few older students. During our 8+ months together, the students formed a deeply loving and supportive community. Anyone could see that they had built something unique and inspiring. Through my eyes as a teacher, coach, and global leadership consultant, what I saw was unlike anything I'd seen before. When the program ended, I desperately wanted to keep in touch with these students and to share their example with the world. So I started the Young Global Leaders podcast. Today we hear from Maisie Frost. Maisie Frost, welcome.
Hi, Jason.
Hey. How is everything going for you today?
It's going really, really well. Yeah, I'm just mentioning to you, I'm taking a second gap year, so really enjoying my life at the moment.
I love it. From what you were just describing, it sounds like it's a kind of a much less structured, chill, a much more chill kind of a vibe than the. Well, I guess it wasn't. I don't know that I'd call Bray Scholars highly structured, right? But there was still plenty of structure. But tell us where you're joining us from. Maybe that can be a launching pad for talking about your gap year, your second gap year.
Yeah, so I'm joining you from the hills of Valencia in Spain on an off-grid farm, which I'm working at for a few weeks. And I work for them during the day with whatever they need. We've been doing olive picking recently to make olive oil. And I also do stuff around the house. And then in the afternoon, I get to lie in the sun and chat to the lovely people who own this place. They've got some really interesting stories about their life here, how they live off grid, the sustainability in which they do things. And yeah, and that's my day. I go to bed quite early, wake up quite late, and generally have a really nice time. It's sunny in December, which for me is mind-blowing, and I'm absolutely loving.
I can relate to that as somebody who grew up in a cold, gray, northern place. For me, that was Western Montana. For you, you grew up in the UK?
Yeah, in Devon, which is like the depths of rain and dark.
And so much further north than you are right now. So yes, sun in the winter still feels like a novelty to me, even after many years.
Yeah,
and
it's such a
warmer,
privilege.
sunnier climb. So I'm happy for you. It sounds like a really dreamy existence.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm very much enjoying Gap Year Part 2 because it's just me. So I can do exactly what I want. And I think Beret was absolutely incredible, but it was a lot. It was really busy, very intense, which gave us so much. But I definitely am enjoying slowing down now.
Good. Well, maybe we'll circle back to that later if it comes up again. I wanted to ask you sort of the first substantive question, which is what makes you you?
Oh, Jason, this is generally the question that haunted me over summer. Because for the first time in my life, I am not tied to anything. I don't go to school. I'm not part of a gap year program. I don't live at home anymore. I have no commitments, no deadlines, nothing that I have to do and nothing that I'm a part of. I'm not a part of any groups. I used to be part of quite a lot of activism and political groups that kind of represented me. And if you asked me, what makes you you? I would say, well, there's this and there's this. And I think often people can talk about what makes you you in relation to the things that you're a part of or the university that you go to. But for the first time in my life, I had nothing and it was just me, which is a choice I made and one that I really wanted to make, but one that absolutely terrified me. But I think I'm starting to work it out. the other day I just finished cutting up some wood at the farm, and the guy who was helping me was like, "You are some bonkers podcast listening 20-year-old eco warrior who puts everyone else who stayed here to shame." And I was like, wow, this is a great description of me. I'm bonkers. I think what makes me me, circling back to the question, I'm very chaotic. And I say yes to everything, and I will be here, there, and everywhere. I listen to podcasts. I consider myself quite well read, and I try to be. I really enjoy questioning everything that's around me and trying to work out what's happening and why. And I am an eco warrior. I'm an activist. I care about the world around me and the people around me. And I would add to that a smiley and fun person. So that's what makes me me.
That completely aligns with my experience of you as well. One aspect of you that I came to admire greatly during our time together is that you were serious, meaning focused on making a better world in some very specific ways. I don't want to make that sound all like foofy and woo-woo and abstract, because it took some very concrete forms throughout our time together. But you weren't like serious. It was never heavy. Right? There was always joy in the air that you would bring. Extremely rare combination of attributes. So your description of yourself and what makes you you, like I say, very much aligns with my experience of you.
Thank you. It's taken me a while, and it's still very much processing. I think one of the reasons I wanted to take another gap year was to purposely separate myself from anything, and to put myself out of organizations and institutions and work out what is the very core of my morals and who I am. And I've gone through a lot of waves with my activism and my changing the world stance. And it's recently been quite a lot of, I guess, lack of hope. And at some point I slightly gave up on it. And then I remembered I can't do that because I'm terrible at giving up on things. And as much as I say, I give up on this, it somehow keeps going. So I'm working out the new wave of what my activism means. And yeah, every day I think that's what I really, really love about my second gap year is I have so much time. I'm not tied to anything. I have nothing to do. So I can sit in the sun and read my book for hours. I can write in my book for hours. I can just sit there and think. I told someone that I go to the University of my own brain recently, which is interesting. I think the University of my own brain and the people around me and the places I go to. It's a big university, this university I attend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. University of my own brain. I love it. There's a lot that we could dig into there. Probably it's such a powerful expression. So the context for you and I knowing each other was gap year number 1 for you with Beret Scholars, and there's so much to be said about 8.5 months on the road, 7 global regions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious, how did you originally get connected with Beret Scholars? I guess so. Maybe even going back to what was the impetus for taking your first gap year, and then how you became acquainted with Beret Scholars and then eventually decided to pursue it.
So I always wanted to take a gap year. I was in UWC, the United World Colleges, which is a group of 18 schools across the world that are united under the values of peace and sustainability. And they were formed just after the Second World War, around the same time that people were forming the United Nations. and things like this, these kind of organizations where people believed that if you brought people together from different places, we would stop having wars with each other.
Hmm.
And obviously, you can debate how well that worked, but that's the school that I attended. And I really wanted to attend that school for the values and because at that time I was very strong in my climate activism, so I really wanted to go to a very alternative school that had those kind of values. And I discovered so much more incredible things about the school while I was there. I was also in Armenia, which is a small country next to Turkey, very undiscovered, and one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and probably my favorite. It has incredible people, incredible food, insane history, a
Hmm.
beautiful language. I could go on forever. But anyway, I
Hmm.
was in this school, and it was a very intense, busy school. And it was around our third semester. We were only there for 4 semesters. And everyone would start applying for university. And I noticed my second years doing this. And for a few weeks, it seemed like everyone had left school because they were so in their heads about this next place that they were going that it felt like they'd already left Armenia. And I was like, wow, that's not something I want to happen. I'm not
Hmm.
going to apply to university. Usual conclusion that someone would make. I'm a bit of a against the grain, in case you couldn't tell. Um, and I thought about taking a gap year. I'd traveled a little bit before, and I thought, yeah, why not? I'll work that out when I come to it, and it means I don't have to apply to university. Great. But then I found myself not applying to anything and feeling quite left out of this whole application thing. Um, and I got an email from our university counselor, and all of the emails were always like, this school here, this American thing here, and I just ignored them because I didn't want to do any of it. And then I saw Gap Year, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I joined a call with Farhad, who's one of the staff members, for the listeners. He's super passionate about beret, really cool guy.
Hmm.
And he, yeah, did a call for like people who went to UWC who could maybe do beret. And it sounded very interesting, a bit too good to be true, as I think a lot of people thought about
Definitely.
beret.
Like, really? Is this
Uh,
actually a real thing?
yeah. So I scheduled another call with Farhad to say, okay, repeat that one. Let's
Hmm.
confirm if this is really happening. And it seemed like it did. And so I wrote my application, which I really appreciated because it felt like I was applying to something, well, so I had something concrete to tell my friends that I was doing. And yeah, I got the good news that I got in. I was also awarded a really good scholarship, which I was really grateful for because I was worried about the money. Um, and I thought, why not?
Hmm.
What's the worst that could happen?
Hmm.
If I've been given this opportunity, then I should jump on it, which is something that I find myself doing quite a lot. And yeah, and then it started to become more of a reality. I realized that it maybe wasn't a joke, and I was actually going to be doing this. So I started packing my bags and working out all the places I go to, and yeah, ended up um in New York. Well, no, where was we flew first to
You
what
would
was
have flown
that?
into Boston, and then
Boston.
New
Yeah,
Hampshire is where we had our week-long
yeah.
orientation.
So I spent a week with a friend who goes to university near Boston beforehand, which was my first experience of the US, and I spent like 2 hours in Target looking at the orange food and being absolutely shocked.
Orange food.
Yes, because you have so many food colorings in your food that it's also bright. And I was just like, whoa. And I have about 20 photos in my camera roll of my first time in Target. And my poor friend just needed to pick up some groceries. And there was this little Brit who had never left Europe being like, oh my God. Um,
Orange. I'm stuck on orange food. Like, do you remember the specific? I mean, I can think of several orange foods now
Macaroni
that you mention it.
cheese,
Mm.
popcorn flavoring, all your candy is crazy colors. Um,
There's Doritos. There's Cheetos.
yeah,
God, there's a
everything.
lot of orange food.
Yes.
I never
See?
thought about that before. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Um,
I went from this friend to the airport. I went 24 hours before I was meant to, which was a bit stupid. So I got to spend a day in Boston.
did you have the
And
wrong
then
date in your calendar? Or?
well, in my head, I was like, it starts on a Sunday, or we have to meet on a Sunday, but we had to meet
Mm.
on a Monday, which confused me. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I was 24 hours early. So I met
It's better than
Elise.
24 hours late.
Exactly. I met Elise, which was really lovely. For the listeners, she was another beret scholar who partially grew up in the Amazon rainforest with her dad capturing photos of the Amazon. So
Mm.
we talked about that experience for her, which was really cool. And I was like, wow, this is going to be a fun year.
Yeah. The
And
very first
then,
one that you're meeting and getting to know and you're hearing that kind of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and then I berated.
That's great. Beret is a verb now. I love that. For your application, I think you had to submit a video, right?
Hmm.
And the reason I'm asking you that is because when I first heard of Bray Scholars and submitted my application for the dean position, I went to the website and just started watching videos. And I think yours was the first one that I watched.
Everyone, like to this day, I still get people who tell me that they recognize me from my video because I don't know
Really?
how, but it got way like publicized a lot, or maybe it
Mm.
was just always it was the top of the website for a while. Um, for people who haven't seen I was bald at the time. I just shaved my head. And
Oh
I
my
was in
gosh, I don't
this
remember
small,
that.
yeah, I was bald, which is quite
Wow.
funny. And I was like running off to like support my house at some sporting event. Like it wasn't a very inspiring, cool video, but anyway, it's quite funny that people recognize me
I
from
remember thinking it was cool and thinking, I want to get to know these students.
it.
As you're sharing, also, I'm just noticing sharing not only about why you chose to do this second gap year, but also why you chose to do the first gap year. And what I think I'm picking up on is just a really deep inner wisdom about yourself and who you want to be, who you are, who you want to be, and how you want to show up. And then also steps to take to set yourself up to learn the things that you want to learn. It's really quite brilliant and, again, rare for anybody at any age to have that kind of clarity, and especially as young as you. This whole notion of disconnecting yourself from organizations and institutions so you can get a better idea of what makes you you. I've never heard anybody articulate it as clearly as you just did. And
Yeah.
I can also share with you from my own experience, like
Mm.
how easy it is to get when one has an identity that is affiliated with an organization. It can become just very attractive. It's like, oh, who are you? What do you do? Oh, I'm Dean of Bray Scholars, right? I mean, I only did it for 1 year, right? But then there's other
Yeah.
positions that I've had, where it just becomes a really easy answer. And what I'm finding myself appreciating about your approach to all of this is kind of welcoming, actually intentionally creating an environment where that level of comfort and ease doesn't exist, so that you're in a position where you have to continually ask yourself that question.
Yeah. I think I'm really scared of ending up at some point in my life. The thing I'm most scared of is retiring. And I've been someone my whole life, and suddenly I'm not, and I
Mm,
don't know who I am. And the idea that I could be 60 and have never really known myself because I've
mm,
always been part of something is absolutely terrifying.
mm,
I think I have a general fear of retiring and not feeling like I lived my life, or retiring and starting to live my life. Because I think in this world of crazy productivity and trying to always level up your skills and do more and do things, I think from what I see, it could be so easy to spend your whole life leveling up and getting to the next thing and doing it and doing it and doing it, and you never sleep. And you're doing this to earn money so that you can, go on holiday, but then you're going to be so exhausted, so you're not really going to go on a holiday. So you're doing it so you can give money to your kids, but are you really going to ever see your kids because you're going to be so busy? You're earning money to like keep yourself alive during retirement. Okay, cool, but you're going to be tired and old and probably not living your best life. And the whole idea of that is my biggest, it's like absolutely terrifies me. So I do everything I think I do everything I can to not do that, which is a bit terrible because my uncles this summer asked me, Maisie, how are you ever going to make any money and do anything? And truly, I don't know. But, right now I worked this summer for about 4 months. And I didn't work very good jobs. I worked at a hotel and I worked at a bar. And they were paying me about £10 an hour. And I did some hours. And that is all the money that I have for this year. And it's not very much. And maybe it's a bit stupid to leave your house with only that much money and try and survive for a year. But what I'm working out is you can live with not much money and you can live a really, really nice life, and you can live a lot slower than other people, and you can take more time with things, and you can do more interesting things because, like right now, I'm working at this farm, and I don't get paid to work. Instead, they cook me delicious food, and I get to stay in their house. So I'm living for free. So I'm not spending any money right now, and the only thing that I'm doing is giving a little bit of my time to their projects on this farm, which is also something I really believe in because they are trying to really work with nature here. They're living off grid. They're doing really interesting things. And it's like, well, if we spend all our lives working and earning so much money and trying to do this stuff, when actually you could be living without very much stuff. Like the people who I'm living with, they don't work and they live entirely off the stuff that they grow on their farm. They grow vegetables. They have meat from the animals around them. They have friends who give them the things that they don't grow. They pick wild olives and make olive oil, which is what we were doing a few days ago. And they're doing pretty well. And yeah, it's the kind of things that I'm thinking about.
And you're going to reap the benefits of this for the rest of your life, despite the exhortations by some in the older generations to get yourself employable, right? In the modern global capitalist sense, you stand to gain so much more in every way by approaching things the way that you're approaching them. I believe that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, sort of sticking with this iconoclastic approach here, I've got a odd question for you. Yeah, I'm a lifelong kind of educator. I think of myself as an educator first and foremost, and education's all about learning. What we don't talk about so much is unlearning. And I'm curious about thinking back on your year with Bray Scholars. Can you share about anything that you might have unlearned during your time on the program?
Yes, I'd love to. Yeah. For context, Jason gave us a few little prompts to maybe prepare for before this interview. And this was the one that I spent the most time with. I was like, unlearning. And I know for a fact that there are a lot of things I unlearned. Um, but the others, like quite a lot of other of my thoughts came to me quite quickly, and this was something I really had to sit with. And something I came up with actually is I unlearned. I'm trying to work out how to put this. I think, okay, so context. I grew up in rural Devon, in a tiny little village with 500 people. Um, a very conservative place, very traditional, and very. I think it's when I tell people I grew up in the UK, they will think of London, Manchester, other, big cities, the
Liverpool.
UK, stuff's happening.
Yeah.
Um, I live like half an hour from any supermarket or shop. Drive.
Mm. Mm.
My village has nothing. It has one primary school, one church, and a pub, a bar. That's it. And anyway, so it's. I think people forget that there are people that still live like that.
Mm.
Um, anyway, I think that I grew up a lovely childhood, because I had so much free space to roam. So I went to the local elementary school, that was right next to the church. So it was a Church of England school. And actually, Jason, we talked about this in Mongolia.
Mm-hmm.
You'll recognize what I'm about to tell you. Um, and we used to have like daily classes on Christianity, and we used to have to pray before each of our meals. Um, and it was quite, my uncle calls this Bible bashing.
Mm.
So my elementary school was quite hardcore Bible bashing.
Mm.
Um, and as a 5-year-old, I did not appreciate that Bible bashing. Um, and I said, no, I don't want to be a Christian. I want to eat my food before I pray to God. Thank you very much. Which set off for me quite a few years of, I don't want to put it too extreme, like demonization of religion, but
Mm.
I wasn't that extreme. But I thought religion was not religion as a whole, but especially Christianity, and especially the Church of England, was the source of quite a lot of evil. And I saw the wars that it had caused, and the wars that
Mm-hmm.
it still causes, and the disagreements of people about religion. And I thought, well, this is just terrible. And then as I was traveling this year, I became in contact with people from many different types of religions, Christians with many different types of beliefs, um, religions that I hadn't even heard of, um, and also spirituality that wasn't necessarily religious but still has its ties. Um, and I began to think to myself, wow, this is actually a really powerful and incredible part of our world, and it doesn't have to be the root of all evil, as
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
perhaps once thought it was. And maybe there really is a place for religion in my personal life. I think that's one of the ways I was thinking about it. Um, and there are also so many more different types of religion and spirituality that I hadn't even come across. Because for me, religion was Church of England Christianity, which is Henry VIII wanted to divorce his wife, and the Catholic Church didn't let him. So he created a whole new religion, and my government is now part of that religion. And where I lived, it was quite a strict Christianity, and they didn't really like gay people. And my brother is trans, and I thought, well, that's not cool. I don't want to be a part of that. But then I realized there's so many different. I remember me and my friend Ava were in India, and um, we were taking a guided tour around Old Delhi, and our tour guide took us into this temple, um, And there were people all the time, 24/7, cooking and serving food to anyone that needed or wanted it in this temple.
Hmm.
And that was part of their religious duty. And there was a group of people who were like cutting the vegetables, and a group of people who were cooking things, a group of people making breads, and then you just go into this big hall and everyone sat on the floor. And 24/7, there are people serving anyone that needs or wants it food. And I was like, well, this is incredible. This is community, this is love, this is people, this is everything that I stand for and believe in, and I think is amazing about the world. And this is religion. And this is
Hmm.
so far from what I thought religion was. So I think I've unlearned, I'm not sure what I've unlearned, but I've done a lot of unlearning about religion and relearning about what it means to be religious and all the different variations of that, which has been very interesting. And it's still a journey I'm on.
It's a beautiful story. And it's not just any story of unlearning, because I think that the questions around religion and spirituality tend to be very, very loaded because they're so closely connected to our most deeply held, most deeply cherished values.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds from your description like you had set up in your brain like a lot of really, really strong associations between this thing called religion and like bad stuff, right? Like religion bad, basically, right? And that's different from, say, like, I don't like bacon. Right? It's different.
Yeah.
It's like what I guess what I'm trying to get at is I think that your accomplishment, like it's a real accomplishment that you have managed to question, loosen, and ultimately it sounds like dissolve a lot of these negative associations. I mean, I'm sure they're still there, like you understand, but that, like in your heart, you managed to actually create freedom for yourself
Mm.
in a really profound way. It sounds that way, anyway.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I'm also, I think it's a big process, and I think it's even got to the stage now where I'm considering like maybe I could be someone who's religious, or
Mm.
I think I am someone who's spiritual.
Mhm.
Does that mean I'm religious? It's I my gram was the most Christian person that I knew, and she's not around anymore, but I have a lot of questions to ask her about her religion. So I don't know, I want to speak to her friends who are still
Good,
around
good.
about her religion, and I asked my mother is not so religious, but my aunt is more, so I asked her like what was Gran like? What was her religion like? And she knows quite a bit about it. So
Mhm.
I think I'm now doing this like exploration into what I didn't realize was my own religion, because my gran was Christian, but she wasn't Church of England Christian like I assumed everyone was. Um, and yeah, it's really, really interesting. Um, and it's come about in so many ways, but a big way through like all the conversations with people in Beret about religion. And I think that was something so incredible about Beret, is that we were all um, there was diversity, and there was a diversity that I haven't really encountered before. UWC is a school that prides itself in diversity, and I went to school with people from over 80 different nationalities,
Mm.
which is just incredible, insane. But it's people who are all there under the values of sustainability and peace and the
Mm.
UWC mission, which is quite specific.
Mhm.
So, although it's 80 different nationalities, we're all really, really similar,
Mm.
which is part of what makes it so special. Beret doesn't have values, and it's not really united under anything apart from, especially in the first year, it was 100 kids who they could find who were
Yep.
willing enough to do this.
Exactly.
Like, there was nothing that really united us all, which made us be really united.
Mm.
And also made so much more open conversations. Because I think in a lot of spheres of people, there's kind of like a general consensus of we all think this, and if you think differently, we don't want to hear about it. Whereas Beret, there was that general consensus didn't exist because we were all incredibly different and we had very different views. And although, in terms of diversity of like race and countries, it was quite diverse, but it wasn't like crazy. Um, I think our ideas and the way we were thinking was insanely diverse. And that meant that we could have conversations about religion and politics and, well, lots of different topics with a much more open mind and in a much more, luckily for each other, kind way than you can. Like, there wasn't any prejudgment because there was no expectation of what you believed because none of us believed the same thing. So you could have these conversations about, like, I still have so many very basic questions about religion that I have never really found the answer to because I've always just like pushed it aside. And then now I'm 20 years old and there's some things that I don't know, but I feel like those are questions I shouldn't be asking because it's like, well, why don't you know that? But Beret was an opportunity where you could ask those questions and you could speak to people about things, and you weren't silly. You were interested, and you could have genuinely, like, really inspiring and life-changing conversations. And I think that's what made our community so special and helped me do this unlearning, and I think helped so many other people also take part in a similar unlearning. Probably not about the same thing, but about, many things.
I'd love to get your take on this next question because it ties right into it. And I'll word it a little bit differently than the question that you saw in the preparatory write up for this conversation. But it's the question about communicating and collaborating across cultures, which is really, I would think about it like kind of a lifeless way of getting at a very alive kind of a notion here. And that is, so I could see you're talking about, it's about 100 roughly 18, 19-ish year old humans coming together from over 40 countries, all these different backgrounds. It's not hard to imagine that the thing could just crash and burn. That it's just difference, threat, no. What do you have to share about, I guess, first and foremost, your own personal, what about you? Why did it go the way that it went for you? And then why do you think it went the way that it went for the group as a whole? Like towards understanding, towards curiosity, towards love and care.
I love talking about this with you, Jason, because you're such an expert on it. And I remember at some point I asked you about language and communication, and I'm really fascinated by especially language. And it's just so interesting to talk to you about something that you're so passionate about. I think it went the way it did because we all knew that this was so special. Everyone came to Beret with the thought that this is too good to be true. It's something we've talked about before. So when it actually happened, despite things going wrong and there were disagreements, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell people that it was all sunshine and butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
It was tough.
Mm-hmm.
And there were arguments. Of course there were. But because we all knew that this was so special, and maybe there was also this hint of like it maybe would never ever happen again.
Mm-hmm.
We were the first year to do it. Maybe we were the last. It was definitely the last year that we would do it. Um, and we don't have time to be misunderstanding and fighting. And we did misunderstand and fight. But I think eventually it would come down to like, we are all here together by some crazy collision of the universe that is never, ever, ever going to happen again. And we are doing the most insane experiences of our lives. And there is no room for this to go wrong. And it did go wrong. But we all tried so hard to make it go right. And I read something a few days ago about when you're finding it hard to make a decision, think about how you would feel about this decision. It's a bit morbid, on your deathbed. I'm not someone who thinks about death much, but when you take away everything and you are just left with, this will end. Nothing matters. You don't have time to think about, I've got to do this. You only have time to talk to people and to connect with people and to love people and to try and have the best time possible, because this will end. And I think for me, it went the way it did because I was also thinking that. And because I so desperately wanted Beret to be a really good community, I think we did end up becoming a community, but it took a while. There were some parts of the program, some of the nature of what we were doing that made it really hard to be a community. So for the listeners, we were staying in hotels in big cities. And one of our first stops was New York, one of the biggest, most isolating cities in the world. And we were staying in a big hotel in Brooklyn, and it was, I don't know how many floors, but we were all on different floors, all in different rooms, and there was no like common lobby for us to hang out. And so you wouldn't really see each other, and you could just go onto the streets of New York and you're never going to see anyone, So by the nature of the program, we didn't necessarily have community by default. And I think it's something that we all wanted to create, but it was harder than at least I expected. And community and bringing people together is something that I'm really passionate about, and I really wanted to do. UWC was a really incredible community, and I knew the power of having that, especially when you're traveling and you're away from home. It's really difficult, and community is survival. So it's something that I really wanted to create. So I think I tried really hard to do that. And there were a couple of things that I tried, and I don't know how much it worked. But for me, I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to let it crash and burn, and I didn't want to argue with people, because for me, regardless of who you are and what you're doing and what you think, you are part of my community, and I want to respect you, and I want you to. I don't want to just respect you. I think that's pathetic. I want more than. Sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but one of the value. The UK has values. Did you know that countries have values? It's really random. Anyway, one of our values is like respect and tolerance, which I think is just so. I think it's pathetic. Like, tolerance? What do you mean tolerance?
Yes, I'll tolerate you, Maisie. If you're lucky, I'll tolerate you. Maybe you'll tolerate me too.
That's terrible.
Right, I know it is.
Anyway, so I didn't want no tolerance as part of this.
Good.
Yeah, if you're part of my community, I want you to be loved, and I want you to be seen, and I want you to be truly a part of it, not just respected and tolerated and definitely not argued with. So I think that's why it turned out the way it did for me.
the stakes ultimately is what the take home, like main take home message from what you just shared is you got connected to the stakes, which are so much bigger than whatever the in the moment discomfort, annoyance, whatever it is that we might be experiencing. Is you saw an opportunity to create
And I
deep,
think,
long lasting connections that you'd be proud of on your deathbed, right?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I think that even without the stakes, like, I think beret was an example of very high level stakes, and that's why in such a short amount of time it was very high level connection.
Mm-hmm.
But I think without such high level stakes, you can also create a really, really bonded community. It just takes time. And
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things I wrote down about cross cultural communication was it takes time and patience and listening and for you to shut your mouth a little bit and open your ears.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think in a high stakes environment, that can happen quite quickly and it will all fall into place. But like for people who are thinking, oh, I'm not in this high stakes environment, but I still want this kind of connection, this community, it still happens. You just need to invest the time into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's all it is. Like, I don't think cross cultural communication, it's really not complicated. It's literally just using your ears and dedicating the time. And that's what's sad is that like we don't have time because everyone is trying to, as I was saying earlier, like level up and make money and do these things. And
Right.
no one has time
Mm-hmm.
to really listen to you. And that's why people think, oh, cross-cultural communication doesn't work. I can't bond with this person because they think differently to me. That's not true. You are just both rushed and under some pressure that you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
If you sit down and you don't look at the clock and you have a reasonably nice attitude, it will fall into place so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And also you stop talking a little bit. I think that's really important. I think listening is so, so important for learning. And you shouldn't talk until you've learned at least two new things, for example.
Yeah. Mostly when we're listening, we're not really listening. We're ready to argue or we're ready to agree, but we're not really taking in somebody else's reality and just letting it sit.
Yeah.
I think you're hitting upon the importance of that crucial skill. It's kind of, I don't know if you've ever heard this one. It goes something like this, like, God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth, so I should behave accordingly, or
Yes,
something like that.
exactly that, Jason.
One other comment also on the deathbed reflection. I think it's so powerful. There's an American author by the name of David Brooks. He's like a political commentator.
I've heard.
And this is a distinction he came up with, and I'm not sure which book. It's either The Road to Character or it's The Second Mountain. Both of them are really interesting books, but he makes this distinction between resume virtues and eulogy virtues.
Ooh.
Which fits right in with everything about why you chose your first and second year, or first and second gap years. That you don't want to just be developing those resume virtues, that you really are fundamentally interested in those eulogy virtues. What are folks going to say about you at your funeral?
I want to be a
Is
person.
that landing? Does that
and
resonate
not a
with
number.
you? Oh, sorry?
I want to be a person, not a number.
Not a number. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
There's so much more I want to ask you. And I know, well, I do want to ask you this, and this is not in the list, because I just know there's interesting things that you're going to have to share about this. Because I also, one of the contexts for you and I interacting was around your leadership in putting on the vagina monologues. And I never had the chance to sit down with you and ask you about how that all came about and what it meant to you. My experience of you in that was as a strong and powerful leader, intent on making something happen, not because it was going to bring glory to you personally or any of your associates, but because you saw you were connected to a vision for some learning and growth that could happen. And I really admired you for how you went about your business and actually made it happen in the end. So anything and everything that you would be willing to share with our listeners about that experience, I think would be valuable.
Thank you for asking. I love talking about this.
Mm.
Um, oh, I think, yeah, I don't even know where to start. For some context for the listeners, this was not an easy um thing that I did. And it also didn't bring up the easiest relationship between me and Jason. And we've always had quite a good relationship, and we've always had like a lot of um like respect and love for one another, I think.
Yes.
And this is probably one of the harder parts of our relationship. But I really think that you can't be you can't have a really good relationship with someone unless you've had an argument with something
Mm-hmm.
about, or not an argument, a disagreement. Because we didn't argue. But I think you need to disagree with people to understand them. Anyway, that's besides the point. So, the Vagina Monologues, if you haven't heard of it, is a collection of monologues, stories, interviews, collected by this woman called Eve Ensler, in the 90s. So, nearly 40 years ago now. Um, and it's a collection of stories about everything relating to people who have a vagina and their experiences with it, and so much more. And so I really recommend you to watch videos of people performing it and or read the book and or go to a performance of it if you
Mm-hmm.
can, because I think for everyone I know who has seen or been involved with the vagina monologues, I can say it's changed their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I am involved with it, and that's why I think it's so close to my heart. Um, it's some really, really heartbreaking stories, some really funny stories, and some really interesting ones as well, because it's a very under researched and under talked about topic, which is why when you start talking about it, it's something so incredible and interesting. Um, So I became involved with it in my first year of UWC, um, and there was an email sent out saying, "Hey, if you'd like to be part of the Vagina Monologues, reply to this email." And I thought, huh, sounds crazy, weird, quite cool. I'm a little bit intimidated because this was the second year and I was in my first year, first term. I want to be involved, but I'm a bit scared. So I didn't reply to the email, and I like put it on my to-do list of things to talk about with someone or like reply eventually. Um, and then I completely forgot. And then I heard something else about it, about like their preparations for it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I never replied to that email. So I went back, I replied to the email, and I said, hey, this is like 5 months later, but are you still looking for people? I'd love to be involved. I don't know anything about this, but I'd really like to be a part of it. And they were like, yes, we're actually looking for more people. It's last minute, but we think you can do it. Here's the book, have a read through and tell us what you think. And I was like, okay. So I had a read through, and I was reading these stories and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And I looked up some videos and I thought this was really, really powerful. And I went along to one of the meetings and they gave me some context about what it was. And yeah, and then we started practicing, and it's a theatre performance. And the person who was running it was quite into theatre. So she was giving us tips on, because it's usually performed as a monologue, as a spoken word piece. But she was giving us some tips on how to dramatize it and We were also in our theatre studios. We were like putting lighting and props and everything. And I kept changing like which one I wanted to do and because I was very confused by the whole thing. And I was trying to do background research, but there was also a lot happening with school. And I think I learnt the one that I performed the night before, which is something I do quite often. I'm a very good procrastinator, and then I realized, oh, I'm actually meant to do that, and I always pull it out, and it's fine, generally. I'm quite good at improvisation. Um, so I learnt mine the day before, and I performed it, and it was really scary. It was my first interaction with theatre or performance. It was very vulnerable because a lot of the monologues are really vulnerable. They're a lot about, I mean, it's vaginas, so it's a very vulnerable topic. Um, and I was doing this in front of all my classmates. And I think I cried afterwards. A lot of people came up to hug me and said, wow, that was really incredible. I was also the only first year doing it. Everyone else was second years, which was kind of lovely because I really felt like I was being taken care of and like mothered by these because they'd done it before. So they were like helping me out, and there's a photo of us beforehand, and they're all like gathered around me teaching how to use the mics because they'd done it before. And I just felt like such a cared for and supported child of this thing. But it also meant I was the only first year who did it, so I was the only one who could do it the next year. So the next year it was my job to do it, and I have absolutely no experience of theatre. So in terms of theatre, the year that I led it that year was completely chaotic and probably theatrically not very good, but I got loads and loads of people involved. Because I'm quite good at like rallying up support for things. And it was really incredible. And literally, I think what makes me want to do it, and the reason why I love it so much is because people always come up to me afterwards, days after, months after, a year after, and say, Maisie, that performance changed my life. That performance made me think about something I've never thought about before. And it always teaches me new things every time I do it because there's the stories in the book that you can perform, and then there's also you can like write your own or do lots of different things. So yeah, that's what made me want to do it. And then I realized I wanted to do it in Beret. So I started organizing it, and I think people were quite shocked by me saying the word vagina out loud. But I eventually got some people to back me up, and we put it on. And I also, the last year that I did it, the second year of UWC, I tried to lead the entire thing on my own, which is a terrible idea. Never lead something on your own. So this year I was like, I want people to help me with the performance and with the organization, and I also want people to volunteer to help lead this with me. So I led it with Mia, who had loads of theatre experience, and we balanced each other really, really well. And we were so like I knew a lot about the performance, like what it actually was. She knew a lot about the theatre, and we were the perfect team. And it was one of the best performances of the vagina monologues that I've ever seen in my 3 years of doing it. And I also got all the same reactions of, this changed my life, this is incredible. I cried afterwards, many other people did. And I'm really glad it happened. And I don't know how much if I've given enough context on what it is, but I don't think you can unless you see it and you interact with it. So that's what I would encourage the listeners to do. If you look it up on YouTube, there's loads of things, and it will blow you away.
I think, well, thank you for sharing all of that. And one piece I just want to fill in a little bit, and maybe you're just being polite, but you did run up against some opposition. Not opposition, because I was never like opposed to it, right? But you had to overcome some obstacles in order to actually bring this to realization.
Mm-hmm.
And what I admired so much is because, and also you had a big team. You know, I know you and Mia led the way, but you had also brought so many people on board who were completely bought in. And that was a really big part of your ultimate success in pulling this off because, you know, there were we had concerns, especially about, bringing vagina monologues into a group with different cultural backgrounds where the topics might be taboo, et cetera. So like all these reasons that there were reasons that we saw that might make it not the best idea for this particular environment. And of course we had just the regular old run of the mill everyday kinds of challenges around booking space and all of that. And it coalesced into this, like, is this really something that we want to that we want to make happen? Could it do more harm than good? And you just persisted. You and your team persisted.
Yeah.
And but not in there's a lot of ways you could have persisted that maybe wouldn't have landed well. The way that you persisted, which was continually like working with us to find creative solutions to the specific obstacles that we were looking at, and also continually speaking the vision into existence. It was just extraordinary leadership. And it didn't just happen. I think that's what I really want our listeners to know, is that this would not have happened were it not for your extreme persistence and ability to work. I mean, I guess we want to talk communicating, collaborating across differences. You did that exceptionally effectively in an environment where you didn't actually have the decision-making power. Mm-hmm. You had to find a way to convince the decision makers that this was something that needed to happen, and you did. And that's meaningful. And I want our listeners to know that. Yeah.
That means a lot, and it's getting me emotional. I think that's what I love about Vaginal Monologues, is it really, like, it brings people together so much, and the people you do it with are also such a, like, bond for life. And as you said, I don't think I mentioned enough my team that I managed to get behind me, and I don't know how people ended up supporting me so much, because at first, as I say, there was definitely a confusion of where has Maisie brought this out from. But it was, I think that's what it does. It glues people together, because as soon as you start getting involved in this, you realize how incredible and also important it is, because a big part of it is the ultimate aim of writing this book and performing this was to end violence against people with vaginas. And 30 years later, that is far, far from being achieved. And when you do this performance, you also try and make some kind of fundraiser alongside it to help the cause. And yeah, my team behind me were so amazing. And it's like one of the most moving and emotional things that I do. And I say I do it because I've now done it like 3 years in a row, and I think I will continue. And another thing I love is I've had many people message me saying, even people who weren't involved when we did it in Beret, people who literally just turned up and saw it, have told me that they're trying to organize a Vagina Monologues in their university or school.
Wow.
And I'm like, you weren't even part of our team. And immediately, I send them all the resources that I have. And I think that's, it just reminds me again and again how amazing it is. But yeah, going back to like the disagreement, I think I'm a very persistent person, and if I believe in something, I will make it happen. But it's something that I've learned. I was telling you before, I was involved in a lot of youth activism, and I used to be in these meetings where I was the only person under 60 and sometimes the only girl. So my ideas have always been quite different and quite weird, and I have no fear about continuing to tell my opinion and what I think should happen in the face of everyone disagreeing with me. Um, and it's something that, yeah, I think I couldn't do without people behind me, even if they're not there directly.
Hmm.
And also the people that I've learned from. Something that I often think about is I used to do these crazy climate protests where we would block the roads in London. And one of my favorite jobs to do while we were doing these protests is to walk down the row of cars and tell them why they were in a traffic jam.
Wow.
And I would walk up to these cars and I would often be greeted by men in business suits going to work, very, very, very angry.
Hmm.
They would swear at me, shout at me, etc. I was 15 at the time, so I looked
Wow.
like a pathetic little child. And as I said earlier, I would stand there and I just listen to what they had to say. And for like the first 5 minutes of them yelling at me, I'd say nothing. And I'd really listen to them and I'd hear what they had to say. And I'd say, huh, that's so interesting. Because ultimately, our climate protests at that time were to get the public population to care more about climate action. And at some point, the public opinion, I think, swayed on climate action. And then it became more about like persuading the governments. But at this time, it was persuading the people. So for me, the most important thing was to listen to these people regardless of whether they were yelling at me. So I'd listen to them and
Hmm.
I'd say, huh, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about, I don't know, whatever they're yelling at me about. I'll take that back. And because we would always have debriefs after the protests, I'll take that back and we'll talk about that in our debrief. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Would you let me tell you a couple things about why I'm doing this? And I don't think I ever walked away from a car with someone still angry at me.
Wow. That is so next level. That really is. I mean, being on the receiving end of someone's anger like that and still being committed to taking some learning away from that and actually succeeding in doing that. I'm trying to imagine what that would be like, and I don't feel like I would be very good at that. A bit better at it now than I have been previously in my life, but certainly not at your age.
Yeah.
Even close.
And it definitely solidifies your beliefs. It can radicalize you, but it's like you don't you don't know what you believe, and you don't truly believe it until you've had someone challenge it that directly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it really gets you thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've actually given us something here. I was looking at, well, actually, okay, two more questions. First is, what can you tell us about what's next for you? I mean, here you are smack in the middle of gap year number 2. Have you thought beyond this year and what might come next for you?
Oh wow, Jason, when you first asked that question, I was about to tell you what I'm doing like tomorrow, the next week. My plans
Yeah,
are
what's
very
next
much.
for you is maybe a
What
different.
next for me is very
Yeah.
much like in the next few days. Big picture, I would like to go to university. My dad jokes that I am not taking a gap year, I'm taking a gap life. But I would like to. My sister says, Maisie, you're uneducated and unemployed. You're so useless.
Great.
And I say, okay, Alice, do you know what? I think I will go to university. um, Not just to prove them wrong. So, yeah, I think I will go to university. I'd like to study history. Not, as you can imagine, not for much resume gain, but literally just because I think it's really, really interesting. And I think history is the basis for so much of our thinking, and it's the basis for everything that's happening right now. And I believe that if you don't know what happened before, then you have no right to speak on what's happening now. So I want to learn about what happened before, and I find it, I mean, in general, I just find it really fascinating. History can also be quite funny and enjoyable. And I like knowledge. I like knowing things. I like being able to
Hmm.
go to a place and tell someone about what I know. Um, so yeah, I think that's what I'd like to study, at least for my undergraduate, for a few years in an interesting place, maybe Barcelona. I don't know. And then, Jason, that's way too much forward thinking for me, so I really can't tell you
Okay,
what's
great.
gonna
We
happen
can leave. We
after
can
that.
leave it there. We can leave it there. We can leave it there. Okay. Okay. Last question then. So, and when I said, you've already kind of given us one possible, probably more than one possible answer to this question. I just want to see if you've got anything left here as well, or anything in addition, I should say, to what you've already shared with us. But this world that we're living in is full of suffering, and a lot of that suffering is caused by humans. And it can be easy to feel overwhelmed and to lose hope. Have you got any words to encourage us about the future?
Yeah. This is a question that hits quite hard because I've gone through a lot of ups and downs of the world is going to crash and burn because we're burning fossil fuels and none of us will be alive by 2050. And then I've gone through, maybe we can stay alive. And then I've gone through, no one cares about climate action. Maybe I don't even care about it. Maybe we all
Mm,
get and die. Maybe it'll be fine. Um,
mm, mm,
and I'm still very much going through that up and down, up and down. Um, but I think I find hope in people, um, and in community and connection. Um, I think I find hope in that it's a lot simpler than we think it is. We spend so much time trying to be better and do better and innovate and create more. And there are so many answers that are right where we are. We are, by some people's thoughts, the peak of evolution. And there's a reason for that. And our world is in the most prime place to host our life. And that's pretty special. And we don't really need much. And I think hope can be as simple as realizing that the plants around you can heal a cut on your knee or a sickness. And you don't need some crazy surgery or some insane therapy, and you probably just need to sit in the sun and eat some plants.
mm.
And the arguments and the anger and the wars, I don't know. If we could sit down with one another, it would probably also be okay. Um, and I think that's what gives me hope is that when you strip everything back and when you have the time to keep it simple and take time to talk to people and listen and hug people and share love and share food and eat well and drink water and whatever else and smile. It seems so simple and so naive and so almost stupid, but I truly think that is how we can. I think when we come together, it can fall into place. We can solve so many problems. Climate action is as simple as working with nature and not against it, and that is as simple as sitting in your back garden. And we do need to figure out some crazy technology solutions, but we also just need to sit down. Rest is resilience, and there is so much hope from the fact that we are exactly where we need to be, doing exactly what we should be doing if only we would give ourselves the time and the trust to do that, and the trust of our world. So if we bond together and we bond with the world, I think it will be all right.
That is a beautiful and empowering and inspiring note to end on. Maisie, thank you. Thank you for taking time to chat today.
Thank you, Jason. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Same. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Maisie. If you did, please tell at least one friend about it. Give us a 5-star rating and follow the podcast. That will help others find us. Until next time, let's keep our heads clear and our hearts open.